Hey y'all, Casey here. Comics are a big part of my life. I started reading comics when I was pretty little. My relationship with comics has waxed and waned and deepened and changed over the years, but they've been in my life in some form for most of it. I even spent some time studying comics in college, which felt like I was getting away with something in the best possible way. As a queer and trans person, I tend to look for queer and trans stories in my media, and comics is no exception. When I've looked around for queer and trans comics, however, it's not been easy to find them, nor has it been easy to find information about them. Despite the difficulty, though, I was undeterred. I had to do a ton of research and had to call on the resources of my boyfriend and my good friend Veronica. My boyfriend Brandon is a wealth of comics knowledge, and Veronica, who's also a creator, and if you're not familiar with her, you should definitely check her stuff out. Her handle on Instagram is @saltandfog. I'll make sure to put that in the description of this video. And actually, for that matter, if you're not following my boyfriend, you should also totally check out his work. His handle is @RoyalBrandon. Again, I'll put that in the description. It shouldn't be this hard to find the history of the communities that I'm a part of. So now that I have compiled this information, I want to share it with y'all. My hope is that by putting it out there, other folks won't have to spend so many hours digging and feeling frustrated and tracking down really difficult to find things. Hopefully it'll be a little easier to keep queer and trans comics history alive. This is the first episode in a series that I'll be doing over time. I want to shine some light on our queer and trans elders who are underappreciated or left out of comics history, or maybe they just paved the way for us here today and deserve some recognition. With that intro out of the way, I'll be getting into the creator that I'm going to be talking about today. That creator is Alison Bechdel. Bechdel is much more well known than a lot of the creators I'm going to be covering in this series, but she did pave the way for a lot of us in a big way, so I wanted to make sure that she gets her fair share of the spotlight. I wanted to start with Bechdel and then ease into some of the more difficult to find folks. Since Alison Bechdel is more well known, I won't be focusing too much on her personal history and will instead just stick to her comics work. Her two most famous books are Dykes To Watch Out For and Fun Home. Dykes To Watch Out For was originally a comic strip, and it was first published in a feminist newspaper called Woman News. Later, Bechdel self-syndicated the strip, sending it out to newspapers all over, and eventually collecting those strips in a graphic novel format. The first bunch of strips didn't really have a central narrative, but eventually the strips do have recurring characters and a plot. In some ways, I would compare it to the L Word. Some people might disagree with me. Dykes To Watch Out For is like the L Word if the L Word was written by a lesbian and featured even one butch woman in it. I should also note that Dykes To Watch Out For was where the Bechdel Test originated. The Bechdel Test is a test that asks whether or not a piece of media contains a scene where, or at least one scene where, two women talk to each other about anything other than a man. The Bechdel test is not a diagnostic tool to determine whether something is necessarily good or bad. Rather, it is a different lens to look at media through. Whether a piece of media passes or fails the Bechdel test is not an indicator of quality necessarily, but it is a good indicator of how women are portrayed in that piece of media. Fun Home is Bechdel's blockbuster book. It was a New York Times bestseller. It was on tons of best of book lists the year it came out, which was 2006. It even got turned into a Tony Award-winning musical, and most recently got optioned for a film. Whereas Dykes To Watch Out For focuses on the larger Dyke community, Fun Home is much more introspective. It focuses on Bechdel's childhood, growing up, her relationship with her family, her father's struggles with his sexuality, and his eventual suicide. Like many creators I'll be covering in this series, Bechdel has done a bunch of miscellaneous work. It can be pretty hard to find things if it's a, one page in this anthology or one illustration in this magazine, if those things never get collected. But if you read Fun Home and Dykes to Watch Out For and you're like, I need more Alison Bechdel, good news, it is out there. It'll just take some hunting on your part. I have a great deal of respect for Alison Bechdel. Doing what she did when she did it was incredibly brave, and the queer comics community now gets to benefit from her bravery. That being said, Bechdel's work has never really resonated with me. This is in part because Bechdel's work focuses on the dyke and butch communities, which I am not a part of. She doesn't generally portray much in the way of femininity or femme lesbians, so I never really saw myself in her work. In addition to the lack of femme characters, Bechdel's work is so closely tied to second-wave feminism, which doesn't do much for me, literally, in the sense that, at best, second-wave feminists didn't really care about trans women, and at worst, they were outwardly hostile towards trans women. Even with that, though, like I said, I really respect Alison Bechdel, and I encourage you to read her work to see if it resonates with you. Alison Bechdel doesn't owe me anything. She doesn't have to include femme characters if that doesn't resonate with her. Just because I don't care for second-wave feminism and the things that are associated with it does not mean that Bechdel's work is bad. Not everything is for everyone. That is something that I wish the contemporary queer community understood a little better. Bechdel might not owe me anything, but I recognize that I owe her a great deal of respect and gratitude for paving the way for us today. And for that, she will always have my thanks and respect. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you got something out of this video, please click those like and subscribe buttons. Until next time.